But I'm particularly pleased to be joined from the Republican National Convention in Wisconsin by the chairman of Republicans Overseas UK, Greg Swenson, and a regular guest on this program. Greg, thank you so much. Everyone must be hugely relieved that Donald Trump survived this wicked attack.
Totally. It's the initial shock of Saturday night was quickly replaced by relief that President Trump survived and didn't suffer any life-threatening injuries, which is a miracle, as you've discussed already. But, and obviously some sadness involved because this really brave man, his name is Corey Camporatori, he, fell on his wife and children to protect them from gunfire and took a bullet and died. So there is some sadness, but by Sunday, when we all started arriving here in Milwaukee, the energy level was really great. As you know, President Trump behaved admirably and bravely on the stage when he was shot, but also, that evening, he only spent an hour in the hospital. He played 18 holes the next day and then flew to Milwaukee. I mean, it's really just a testament to his strength and his leadership.
It's very impressive. I think most people would have expected Donald Trump as a big man, a bold man, to have taken it in his stride. But then he's been so statesmanlike. There's been none of the normal Trump anger. He's been calling for people to come together. And I think that's a new Donald Trump, isn't it?
It's really refreshing. I mean, Jacob, I've been a critic of President Trump over the years in certain situations. But it's not just since Saturday. He's been much more disciplined in this campaign. The campaign in general has been disciplined, but personally, President Trump has been disciplined. So this is just, I think, more of what we've seen this year from President Trump. Maybe he's finally gotten a message from some good advisors. Maybe the people around his campaign have kept a tight lid, but he's behaved perfectly since Saturday night. He's rewriting. He's decided to rewrite his speech for Thursday to make it a little bit more about, unification and bringing the country together. I mean, stuff that, you don't necessarily hear from the Trump campaign typically, or at least in the past. But this is definitely what I would view as a new Donald Trump, and his numbers must be going up because everything seems to be working for him, even in spite of the assassination attempt.
And that an assassination attempt undoubtedly has political consequences. And it may be slightly tasteless and tactless to say this, but the reality is there are political consequences. The two that seem most obvious at the moment is that Donald Trump has appeared more statesmanlike, but also the attacks on Joe Biden have lost airtime, lost momentum, and that secures his position as the Democratic candidate.
Possibly. I mean, you're right on both points. The attention was all about Biden in the last 3 weeks since the debate debacle for Biden. And I was afraid that the convention wouldn't really get much attention, the Republican convention. So it's kind of both of those issues have changed. I think there is significant focus on this convention now that, after Saturday night. And yes, it takes away from the focus on President Biden's cognitive issues, but it's been such an elevation for President Trump. I can't imagine that he doesn't, poll much better based on this. It doesn't necessarily happen to everybody. I think there were 2 attempts on Gerald Ford's life. It didn't really help him in the polls at all. There have been attempts on other presidents. Sometimes it really helps, like with Reagan in 1981. Obviously, you mentioned, Jacob, the bump that LBJ got in 1964. So it just depends. But in this case, he will get a bump because of the way he's behaved, the way he's treated his followers, his supporters, and the way he's reached out to people who don't support him. So it's a really fascinating couple of days, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens this week.
And the timing for you being over in Wisconsin for the Republican convention and getting the direct mood of your fellow Republicans, they must be both in a state of shock and of excitement.
Definitely, and it's probably more the latter. I think Saturday night was shock. It happened around 5:30 Central Time here in the Midwest, so 6:30 Eastern. By Sunday, it was well digested that, he was well and fine. He'd flown home that night and only did, as I said, an hour in the hospital. So I think there was I think by Sunday midday, the energy level was really elevating. People are confident in everything he's doing right now, and he's on a roll. I don't think he's stoppable at this point.
And imagine the security is pretty tight. Well, have the Secret Service learned immediate lessons? Because people have been saying, how did they allow this line of sight to be unspotted?
It's a good point. I think there was a massive failure in terms of especially in the prep work and the advance work. I wouldn't say that there was a failure of the Secret Service agents that were surrounding the president. They did really well, and I think even the agents that ended up shooting and killing the gunman, they were, executed well, for lack of a better word. But the prep and the advance work, there were major failures there, Jacob. And I think there'll be some inquiries, or their inquiries already started on that, because there's no reason that they shouldn't have made that building completely, immune to any sort of infiltration.